Welcome back, I'm the Casual DM. This is a series where I break down all of the different D&D classes, not from the player's side, but from the Dungeon Master's perspective. We'll talk about class fantasy, gameplay mechanics you need to watch out for, story hooks, and what's the best way to make your players feel like the heroes they signed up to be. So whether you're running your first campaign or your 50th, let's talk about how to run better D&D campaigns. And now with that all in mind, it's time to talk about the most pious, the truly holier than thou, whether they like it or not, the Clerics. Because Clerics are a great class for a DM, reason being is the case that immediately they open the door for gods, greater beings, faith, religion, and all that it encompasses. Not only that, but they have some really cool abilities. Yes, they are healers, but they are so much more than that. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to go over today, and I really hope they're going to like this, because Clerics are powerful in so many different ways. Not only are they good at being tanks and healers, but depending on how they're built, they can be incredible damage dealers, and just all around, the sheer fact that a cleric will be in your party really mixes everything up. But first of all, let's figure out why your players pick clerics with the class fantasy. Because when a player picks cleric, they aren't just picking a healer, right? They're following the idea of divine connection. They like the idea that their character's power is coming from something bigger than themselves. Funnily enough, Clerics are probably the closest class to the idea of the chosen one, maybe aside from paladins. That one's up for debate, depends on how the paladin is played. But really, they like the fact that their character is being empowered by their faith or maybe their purpose. It depends really on how your player is going to play them, because it could be through their faith, it could be that they are being told to do their actions, or it could be that they already have an idea of what their purpose is. They are already following through, and the god is just like, yes, you're doing everything that needs to be done. So yeah, I'm going to happily help you out. That's the fun part. The other cool thing about clerics is that they've got a fun level of questioning going on with the case that they might be morally anchored. They might. Like, at least the stereotypical cleric is morally anchored. The stereotypical cleric is, holier than thou, if you will have the power of God and justice on your side. But at the same time, we have also seen multiple clerics where that is not the case at all. And that can be fun because, yeah, you can end up having, the classic drunk cleric who struggles with their faith, or you can go with the really super zealot. Like there's lots of different ways that your player may take it. So a lot of fun ideas can just sort of grow from this class. The other cool thing is the case that really a cleric's actions kind of matter cosmically, right? The case that what the cleric decides to do, where they decide to go, who they decide to follow, are all part of a divine entity's plan. Whether that entity is an actual manifestation, the idea of a god or an avatar, or the case that maybe it's just the domain. Like, it could just be that the domain of life needs help from a cleric to help level the balance of the world, which kind of blends into how druids work. It's quite a cool, beautiful blend of ideas of what is divine and what isn't, and where do those lines get drawn, and how far are things going to go. The cleric fantasy as a whole is more authority, less power. What I mean by it is that your cleric and what they decide to do has a reason behind it, at least in the idea of your storytelling. Your cleric is devout. They are following an idea. Does that idea actually have plans? Does it sort everything out? Is there a reason behind the madness that goes on in your campaigns? And the thing is that clerics immediately bring up these questions because clerics ask and answer, gods are real, right? Because something answers, and that is the fun question that can go throughout your entire campaign. It could just be as simple as, yes, of course they are. Look, there's one right there doing crazy things. Or it could be, they're silent, but you're gaining your power from something. And both are correct, and both are really fun. But Now, let's get into a bit deeper ideas of what goes on with clerics with the mechanics. Because clerics have a lot of crazy mechanics. Because, yes, first of all, healing. They're healers. That is the first of all stop along the way for clerics. Because healing immediately mixes up all of your combat encounters. What are you going to do when your players can heal in the middle of combat? Well, it's actually kind of simple. They've got to decide what they're using those spell slots for. They can't just heal all of the time. In the middle of it, in the middle of the heat of the moment, they've got to decide, am I going to use this second level spell to bring one of the other party members back up and get them into the fight? Or am I going to use this spell against the enemy? That is the fun questions that clerics have in the middle of combat. Because yes, everyone wants to have a healer so that they can get back into the fight and deal some damage, but your player also wants to play the game. They don't just always want to be support. At least not everyone. So, those are fun questions in the heat of the moment that you can actually frame into a fun way. Being the case that if your cleric isn't healing people in the middle of combat, why aren't they? Is there a question of faith going on there? You can at least ask the player, get them thinking about it. But aside from that, there's channel divinity. Healing is one thing. Channel divinity is another. Yes, certain clerics have channel divinity be a healing power. That's really cool. But others might have the ability to do extreme damage to undead. Like, channel divinity changes based on basically a lot of different factors. Main one being what domain your cleric is under. So I'm not going to go into all of the details there. This video and all of the others are already long enough. I do not have the time to focus in on all of the different subclasses of every other class. Basically, though, to summarize, channel divinity is the bomb. Channel divinity is the big power of the clerics, and learn what it is. Learn what your specific cleric subdomain does and what its main power is so that you can plan out your encounters accordingly. Don't make it so that it's negligible, but at least make it so that you know what is going to be coming so that the encounter feels fun and flavorful when they pull their stuff off. And the reason why I'm not going to such detail is because I've already got too much to talk about, such as the spell lists. Because, oh boy, there's a lot. Because clerics are very versatile when it comes to their spell lists. Yes, they've got their healing, but they've also got defensive magic. They've got offensive magic, and they have some utility magic. Clerics are a lot. Like, there's just a lot to talk about when it comes to the cleric's spell list. Being the case that, yes, you have obviously things such as your basic healing spells, your AoE healing spells, but also you then have spells like Shield, Spirit Guardian, Spiritual Weapon, are all very fun combat, defensive/offensive magic, being the case that it's harder to hit them. And also, guess what? You're now having literal radiant damage be dealt to your opponents. Great fun, very cool, very powerful. And the thing is it isn't just combat magic. They have spells like Guidance, which make people better at everything they do. Why? Because it's divine ordained. Like, they have the literal power of gods on their side, and their spells are very flavorful around it. So, have a look through, see what might be going on. Heck, make some recommendations to your players if you think it would be quite cool to your stories. Obviously, at the end of the day, your player gets to pick, but when they pick their spells, pay attention, because that's how you can really turn your stories into very fun, flavorful encounters. And also Revivify. Be prepared for Revivify. That is a decision that you have to make as a dungeon master, being the case that, yeah, they can kind of revert death. But that begins to get into the story integrations. And let's actually go into this, because clerics have a lot of story and narrative implementations that are all going on, that are all really fun, and I want to talk about it. Because, oh boy, does faith bring up a lot of questions, being the case that, first of all, gods. Gods are a whole thing, yes, and I might have already gone over it, but it then questions up, what kind of gods are going on? How big is the roster of gods? What gods are in contention with one another? What gods are in charge of what? Gods in D&D as a whole are powerful, ranging from the kind and caring to the truly sinister and outright malicious. Gods in your games are important, they're powerful, and just because your cleric is following one doesn't mean that another can't be also involved in the story. If anything, I kind of suggest you do include it, and not just on the side of the villains. Having just a second or third god that is associated with the party makes things really interesting, because then they're vying for control over the different party members. There's lots of fun ways to do it. And then we get into the church. Now, in terms of church in D&D, there's a couple of different things, because yes, you have this vast, varied array of gods. Now you also have a vast, varied array of churches and their followers, from the truly devout to the outright just zealotrous. Like, it gets insane, being the case that, yes, you might end up having the nice, kind, caring cleric priests and everything going on in church, but you might have the zealots who are turning around being like, no, you're either a follower or you're heretical. Heresy. That's another thing in terms of story. What is heretical or not, depending on faith? Being the case that you might have a truly pious, devout cleric who's following the word of their god, but it might be outright heresy to another god. Which then brings in the question, what about their followers? They're the followers of this god. You're being heretical. I'm gonna have to take you down, because it's in their doctrine. Like certain factions can't exist in parallel to one another. It just doesn't work like that. Certain factions, certain gods, and certain beliefs in the realm of D&D and others end up having just outright moral conflict, being the case that certain ones believe that they are right and that they are in the right and everything that they do is right, and others might not care. They might just want to do good or bad or whatever. But the thing is that they've got opposing sides to an entire holy war, which is fun to have in your worlds, because, yeah, holy wars. We've got them in real life. We've had entire history made from it. So much goes on around religion in our own history that you just have to open up a history book and you'll be able to end up seeing, I almost guarantee, at least 1 to 2 to 3 to 17 wars declared because of religion. There are so many, it's insane. But great inspiration for your storytelling and dealing with how far and how impactful does it get. Now, other things. Gods. They have plans, they have machinations, they have ideas of what the grand scheme and what is going to happen, right? How far are they willing to go? What are they willing to do? What are they willing to ask of the cleric? How much is the cleric going to do for their god? That's the big question. That's going to need an answer. Other than that, how does the god communicate? Is it clear? Is it direct? Do they literally cast themselves down as an avatar in front of their cleric and say, my child, you shall be doing this on a Tuesday, because I said so? Or is it just going to be quiet? Silence in the wind? Is it going to be quiet breezes but guiding the player in the right direction? Or is he dead silent? Is the god even alive? Fun questions to ask. Other than that, and I'm going to try and very quickly go through over the final other major things. First of all, story integrations. Crisis of Faith. Crisis of Faith is a great story motivation and so many inspirations that you can take from it. Because yes, you might know that your god is real, you might know that they are physically there, they're communicating with you. Doesn't mean that they're good, doesn't mean that your player character wants to actually follow them. They just are a cleric. Could turn out that the god's a dick. And so now they've got that question going on. Other than that, divine silence is fun, because not only do you have the question of, oh, is the god dead or not, but also the question is, what if the god is alive and he just decides to put your cleric on mute? Yeah, that's a problem, because now your cleric can't cast spells. What do you do about that? What do you do? That is the biggest lead up to a crisis of faith if I've ever heard it. What would you do if you knew your god was real and they were ignoring you? In terms of faith, I am shooketh. And then other final crazy things. Corruption in the church, any of the faiths, great fun. Great story, it's obvious, it's tried and true, but it's good for a reason, because what do you do when the head priest of the church is now wanting to become divine ruler? Yeah, that's a problem. Also, false prophets. Whether being from the outright silly to the outright dangerous. Because yes, you might end up having one person who's just swaggering around in a robe being like, ah yes, I'm the prophet, it's great, yes, shower me in gifts. Ah yes, this is great, okay, thanks very much guys, I'll see you on next, never, bye-bye. And then you end up having the actual false prophets who are really dangerous to people being the case. It's like, yeah, God just told me to end up burning down this village. Why? Because they didn't like my shoes. No one should have that kind of power. No one should have that much blind faith, and yet because of religion, because of doctrine, because of what faith is, we get them. And the fun part is that your cleric is in the middle of all of this, coming at it from so many different angles, and they've got to find their faith and where they stand and who they are going to be a representative of. Clerics aren't just servants to their gods, they are representatives of their god. And that's the question. Who is their god? What does their god stand for? What do they represent? Because they might start the game following one god. Doesn't mean that they have to end it following that same god. So many different questions, and that's before we even get into politics, and that's a whole thing. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to call this video here because of the case that, well, the video's already ended up taking quite a while to record, make, all of that stuff, and I don't really have time to end up editing up the whole thing, and instead of delaying the whole video and then coming out with a whole 40-minute long video, instead, I think splitting it in half is probably a better way, because that way then this video is more digestible for you, and it saves me and my sanity. But aside from this, I think it's an opportunity to take a step back, think about it, and I've come to the conclusion that I can't keep trying to make these class breakdown videos every other week because of the simple case that sometimes there's a lot to talk about. So I think going forwards, should a video ever end up exceeding 25 to 30 minutes, I'm going to split it into parts because it's just easier for you guys to sit down and watch, and also for me to keep my sanity when it comes to editing and everything. Other than that, I'm also realizing that while I love these class breakdowns, while I love being able to help you guys and give you guys information about it all and everything, it is kind of the same thing over and over and over again. And there's a lot to talk about with D&D, so I want to mix things up. Don't worry, the class breakdowns are still coming out. Don't worry, the poll results are important. But I'm thinking I might start mixing it up between class breakdowns where there will then be at least some other video to spice things up, keep you guys on your toes, talk about other subjects, other things. Maybe it's going to be a campaign book, maybe it's going to be a villain, maybe it's going to be some form of inspiration that we can take, maybe it's just going to be a specific area in TTRPGs. Write what you want down in the comments and I'll certainly be paying attention, especially on this video because announcements. But yeah, either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm sorry that we couldn't end up breaking down all of Clerics in this one video. It's already taken me a long time to get to this point, but don't worry. Next video coming out soon, covering the last of Clerics, and then we will see what comes out in the future. Either way, my friends, if you ended up liking this thing, could you please end up giving this video a like, because I'd greatly appreciate it. If you want to see the next Cleric Breakdown Part 2, and you haven't already, if you could hit that subscribe button, that will end up making sure that you will be here when the next video comes out. Don't forget to ring that notification bell as well, so that way then you're actually informed when that video comes out. And also, final things, write down your thoughts, feelings, and comments. Is always handy, always great. Love to see what people think, especially about the class. Clerics just really cool in general. And yeah, either way, I hope you have a good one. Patreon is in the description. Again, not much currently. Don't worry though, with this new change and shift, hopefully I will have a bit more time to actually start making you guys some really cool stuff. There is something, it's in the works. Taking a little longer than I expected, and the last two videos have ended up being 40 minutes long. So yeah, I haven't had time to unfortunately really get into making it, but when it's done, there'll be lots of stuff coming out of it. Either way, I hope you have a good one. I'll see you again very soon. And in the meantime, my friends, have a good one. Bye-bye.